Learn English through story. A dangerous path. The village of Cinderbrook lay nestled between the foothills of a vast mountain range and the dense, untamed woods that bordered it on all sides. For centuries, its people had lived in relative peace, farming the land, raising their children, and telling stories that warned of the dangers beyond the village boundaries. The most ominous of these tales was that of the dangerous path, an ancient road winding through the forest and up the mountains, said to lead to riches and knowledge but, more often than not, to ruin. The path was treacherous, not because of physical dangers alone, but because of the promises it whispered into the hearts of those who dared to walk it. It was said to tempt travelers with visions of their deepest desires, seducing them with the idea that they could have everything they ever wanted if only they followed the path to its end. However, no one who had ever set foot on the path had returned to speak of it. They vanished, swallowed by the forest, by the mountains, or perhaps by their own greed. The people of Cinderbrook had long accepted that the path was not for them. They lived simple lives, content with what they had. But not everyone shared this view. Caleb, a young man in the village, was different. He had grown up listening to the stories, but instead of fear, they sparked in him a deep, burning curiosity. Caleb was restless, always yearning for something more than the life that lay before him in Cinderbrook. The village was small, the people predictable, and the future mapped out. He wanted adventure, something beyond the mundane routine of farming and building. His heart raced at the thought of the unknown, the mysterious. By his early 20s, Caleb had become obsessed with the idea of the dangerous path. He had heard the warnings, but they only served to fuel his ambition. He wanted to prove the village wrong. He wanted to show them that it wasn't fear or legend that kept them trapped in their small lives, but their own reluctance to face the unknown. Caleb believed that if he could conquer the path, he would find the wealth and wisdom the stories promised. He would return a hero, the one who had broken the chains of superstition. One fateful morning, after months of contemplation, Caleb made his decision. He would set out on the path, despite the warnings of his family and the disapproving stares of the village elders. His father, a weathered man with eyes clouded by both age and sorrow, tried to stop him. "Caleb, you don't know what's out there," his father pleaded. "It's not just the path you're walking, it's your mind that will lead you astray. The path plays tricks, shows you things that aren't real." But Caleb was stubborn. "That's exactly what I want to find out, Father. I'm not content with a life spent in fear of stories. I have to see for myself." And so, without further discussion, Caleb left the village at dawn, carrying only a small pack of provisions and a sturdy walking stick. The sky was overcast, casting a dull gray light over the world as he made his way to the edge of the forest where the dangerous path began. The entrance to the path was unremarkably just a dirt road winding through dense trestle, but the air around it felt heavy, almost thick with something Caleb couldn't quite define. He took a deep breath, pushed his doubts aside, and stepped onto the path. At first, the journey was straightforward. The road was narrow but clear, winding through the forest in a way that seemed logical. Caleb walked for hours, passing through groves of ancient trees, their bark knotted and gnarled with age. The forest was eerily quiet, with no sound of birds or animals, just the crunch of his footsteps on the earth below. As the sun began to sink low in the sky, casting long shadows across the path, Caleb started to notice strange things. The trees seemed to shift in the corners of his vision, their branches bending and twisting in ways that defied nature. The wind whispered through the leaves, but the words were almost intelligible, as though the forest itself was speaking to him, tempting him to go deeper. Caleb tried to ignore it, convincing himself that it was just his mind playing tricks on him after a long day's walk. He set up camp for the night, lighting a small fire to ward off the chill that had settled over the woods. As he sat by the fire, eating a small meal, he felt a growing unease in the pit of his stomach. Suddenly, a rustling came from the trees behind him. Caleb jumped to his feet, gripping his walking stick tightly, his eyes darting toward the sound. From the darkness, a figure emerged, a man, older, with a wild look in his eyes, his clothes tattered and dirty. "Who are you?" Caleb asked, his voice steady but wary. The man grinned, revealing crooked teeth. "Just a traveler, like you. Been on this path a long time, boy." "Too long, perhaps." Caleb frowned. "You're still here. Does that mean you never found the end of the path?" The man chuckled, a sound that sent chills down Caleb's spine. "Oh, I found it, but it wasn't what I thought it would be." "You think you're going to find something great, don't you? Riches, power, knowledge, something like that," Caleb replied, his confidence faltering slightly. The man stepped closer, his grin fading into a more serious expression. "Let me give you some advice, boy. The path doesn't lead to anything good. It shows you what you want, sure, but it'll cost you more than you're willing to give. Turn back now, before it's too late." Caleb stared at the man, considering his words, but his pride wouldn't let him listen. "I've come this far," he said, shaking his head. "I'm not turning back now." The man sighed and shrugged. "Suit yourself, but don't say I didn't warn you." With that, he disappeared back into the forest, leaving Caleb alone once more. The next morning, Caleb continued on the path. As the hours passed, the strange occurrences grew more frequent. He began to see visions and illusions, he told himself, but they were so vivid they felt real. He saw a golden city in the distance, its towers gleaming in the sunlight, promising wealth beyond his wildest dreams. He saw figures walking toward him, beckoning him forward, their faces filled with joy and love. He saw himself standing at the top of a mountain, powerful, respected, and feared. But with every step, the path became more treacherous. The road twisted and turned in impossible ways, leading him through dense thickets, over steep cliffs, and into dark, shadowy valleys. The further he went, the more lost he felt, as if the path itself was changing, warping to fit his thoughts. The illusions began to take on a darker tone. The golden city crumbled into dust as soon as he reached out for it. The figures turned away from him, their faces cold and distant, and the mountain he had seen himself standing atop became an insurmountable wall, too high and too sheer to climb. Caleb began to doubt himself. Was the man right? Was this path truly dangerous? Not just because of the physical dangers but because of what it did to the mind? He had set out with a clear purpose, to find something beyond the village, something that would give his life meaning. But now, he wasn't sure what he was looking for. As night fell once again, Caleb found himself standing at a fork in the path. To the left, the road seemed to continue deeper into the mountains, darker and more foreboding than before. To the right, a narrow trail led back toward the village, through a dense part of the forest. Caleb stood there for a long time, staring down both paths, his heart heavy with indecision. Suddenly, he heard a voice behind him, a familiar voice. "Caleb, come home." He turned and saw his father standing at the edge of the trees, his face etched with concern. "It's not too late, son, you can still come back." For a moment, Caleb felt a surge of relief. But then, doubt crept in. His father wasn't supposed to be here. How could he have followed him? Caleb's heart raced as he realized the truth. This was another illusion. The path was trying to trick him, to pull him back with false promises. "I'm not turning back," Caleb shouted, his voice filled with anger. "I'm not like the others." His father's image faded, leaving Caleb alone once more. With renewed determination, Caleb chose the left path. He walked through the night, his mind spinning with thoughts of victory, of proving himself right, of finally reaching the end. But as dawn broke, the path grew more perilous, the ground became rocky, and the air thin and cold. Caleb stumbled, his body weakening, his spirit faltering. And then, he saw a cave at the end of the path, its entrance shrouded in mist. This was it, the end of the dangerous path. Caleb approached cautiously, his heart pounding. But as he stepped into the cave, he realized the awful truth. There was nothing inside, no treasure, no wisdom, no glory, just an empty, hollow space. The promises the path had whispered to him had been lies all along. Caleb fell to his knees, the weight of his journey crashing down on him. He had risked everything for Thesa, his life, his future, and it had all been for nothing. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you enjoyed, then please like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.